Have you ever wondered what life in a city lost to time might have felt like? Somewhere in the vast expanse of desert sands, there once existed a quiet city, now largely forgotten by the world. Its streets were neither bustling with fame nor echoing with legends of conquest. Instead, it held the simple, enduring rhythm of daily life. In this story, you will follow the passage of a single day in that hidden place, a day where people lived, worked, and moved in harmony with the harsh, yet strangely gentle desert that surrounded them. The tale is one of ordinary moments, the rising sun, the shifting shadows, and the unnoticed beauty of a city quietly surviving. The sun had not yet risen when the first light brushed the golden dunes that stretched endlessly beyond the city's edges. The desert air, cool and still, carried the faint scent of earth and sand, a quiet reminder that the city existed at the mercy of the elements. Narrow streets, lined with low sandstone buildings, lay in the early morning shadow. Their walls, smooth and warm from the previous day's sun, held the impressions of centuries, faint carvings, worn doorframes, and occasional traces of color where murals once adorned them. In the far corner of the city, a small fountain had long ceased to sing, but water still pooled in its basin from the last night's condensation. Birds, few in number, flitted around it, dipping cautiously. The silence of the city was profound, broken only by the soft rustle of cloth from hanging laundry and the whisper of the desert wind against the walls. From the northern edge, a lone baker emerged, dusting flour from his hands onto the stone pathway. He moved with deliberate care, aware that each action in the cool morning was magnified in a city where time seemed slower. Inside his modest shop, clay ovens were already warm from the night's preparations, their soft heat spilling into the street and mingling with the chill of dawn. He arranged loaves on shelves, each marked with slight imperfections, a testament to human patience and craft. Meanwhile, in the eastern quarter, the market square slowly came to life. Stalls of woven mats, clay pots, and simple textiles were set carefully, each vendor aware of the ritual that marked the beginning of the day. The scent of spices, dried herbs, seeds, and rare desert fruits, traveled lightly through the still air, a quiet invitation to anyone who might pass by. Yet, few did, for the city had long existed without outsiders, a self-contained rhythm sustained by generations who knew each other by the smallest details, the curve of a hand, the weight of a step, the precise hue of freshly baked bread. Above all, the city seemed to breathe with the desert itself. Walls warmed by the morning sun expanded slightly, stone tiles shifted with subtle cracks, and the shadow of a distant tower stretched long and thin across the sand. The people moved among these changes with unspoken awareness, each step a silent acknowledgement of the fragile balance between human persistence and the quiet power of the desert. Even in these earliest hours, there was a sense of purpose woven through the city's life. Not through grand gestures or heroic deeds, but through the simple acts of tending ovens, sweeping courtyards, and arranging goods with care. Every movement, though small, contributed to the continuity of a world hidden away from history, a city that survived not through fame or conquest, but through quiet, patient labor and attention to the needs of one another. As the sun climbed higher, its light began to spill fully across the city, igniting the soft gold of the sandstone walls and casting long, intricate shadows along the streets. The air, once crisp with morning coolness, grew warmer, carrying the faint hum of life that had slowly begun to stir. Residents moved through the narrow alleys with deliberate calm, each carrying out their ordinary tasks with quiet dignity, aware that the day's rhythm depended on the careful timing of countless small actions. In the central square, a few children had begun to wander, their tiny feet kicking up dust as they chased after one another in unstructured games. Their laughter, muted by the surrounding walls, punctuated the soft murmurs of adults tending to their chores. A woman swept the steps of a small temple-like structure, brushing away fine grains of sand that had settled overnight. The motion was meditative, and the sand's movement left fleeting patterns that vanished as quickly as they appeared, much like life itself in this forgotten city. Craftsmen began to hammer and carve, their tools producing rhythmic echoes that bounced off the walls. The blacksmith's forge glowed in the heat of the mid-morning sun, and he moved with precision, shaping iron and copper into simple implements that would serve the community for months. Each strike was deliberate, each motion measured, a testament to skill honed through repetition and careful attention. Nearby, a potter worked at a wheel, hands wet with clay, molding vessels whose curves reflected both necessity and artistry. Market stalls began to take form as the city's quiet trade unfolded. Baskets of dates, dried figs, and hand-woven fabrics were arranged with care, each display a subtle reflection of the vendor's pride. The soft clatter of ceramic jars and the faint scent of herbal preparations mingled in the air. Movement here was unhurried but purposeful. Every placement of an item, every sweep of a counter, contributed to an underlying order, a rhythm understood by all who lived within these walls. Even as work continued, there was an undercurrent of stillness. The desert pressed gently against the city's borders, its vast silence a reminder of both fragility and endurance. Windows of homes were open to catch the breeze, yet nothing disturbed the balance of calm that had settled over the streets. Shadows shifted as the sun moved across the sky, falling differently on each doorway, each window, each wall. The city's pulse was quiet, not in the absence of life, but in the measured way that life unfolded here, steady, patient, and unhurried. By late morning, small gatherings of women and men appeared near wells or in shaded courtyards, carrying out simple routines, drawing water, kneading dough, repairing textiles, or tending small gardens where hardy plants clung stubbornly to life. There was no urgency in their movements, only a gentle acknowledgement of the day's demands and the satisfaction of fulfilling them. The city, forgotten by the world beyond its dunes, seemed to exist in a state of perpetual continuity, each person's effort seamlessly interwoven with that of their neighbors. Even the animals, few though they were, moved with purpose. Goats grazed cautiously in fenced areas, birds flitted between rooftops, and cats prowled silently along the sun-warmed walls, all attuned to the gentle pulse of the city's daily life. In every corner, whether bustling with human activity or bathed in the quiet of midday sun, the city revealed its secret. It thrived not through grandeur or fame, but through the unremarkable, consistent acts of living and laboring together in harmony with the desert that surrounded them. As the sun reached its zenith, the light became sharper, casting the city in bright, unflinching clarity. Dust rose in thin waves from the streets, stirred by steady footsteps, and the heat of midday began to press gently against the walls. Despite the intensity of the sun, life continued with an unspoken rhythm. People adjusted their routines to the day's demands, moving deliberately through shaded alleys, open courtyards, and sunlit squares. In one corner, a man tended to a small herd of goats, guiding them toward sparse patches of hardy desert vegetation that survived in hidden pockets of soil. The animals moved slowly, unhurried, as if aware that the day's heat demanded patience. Nearby, a woman laid out freshly washed textiles across low walls, allowing the sun to dry them evenly. The colors, muted ochres, faded reds, soft creams, shimmered slightly in the strong light, evidence of hands that had labored for hours to maintain the beauty of ordinary life. In the heart of the city, the market's quiet pulse had grown stronger. Vendors arranged baskets of produce, carefully separating seeds, nuts, and dried fruits into neat piles. The air was fragrant with the mingling scents of spiced oils, herbs, and baked bread. Though no outsiders passed through the city's gates, the residents engaged with each other in small acts of exchange, a loaf traded for a handful of dates, a bundle of herbs exchanged for a simple clay jar. The transactions were silent, almost ceremonial, each one reinforcing bonds of trust and mutual reliance. Shadows lengthened subtly as the sun moved across the sky, creating a shifting pattern on the walls and streets. Courtyards became places of temporary respite, residents rested briefly on low stone benches, seeking shade and relief from the sun. Children paused in their play, leaning against walls or crouching beside fountains, watching droplets of water glisten in the light before evaporating into the dry air. Even in stillness, there was motion, the slow rotation of the sun, the gentle sway of palm fronds, the subtle movement of dust stirred by unseen breezes. Craftsmen adjusted to the heat by moving their work into shadowed nooks. The blacksmith paused briefly, wiping sweat from his brow, then continued his shaping of metal with a steady rhythm. The potters will turn slowly, clay yielding to skilled hands, forming vessels that would hold food, water, and oil for the city's residents. In the quiet streets, a carpenter measured and cut, the soft scrape of wood against stone echoing faintly. These actions, repetitive yet purposeful, defined the city's heartbeat, unremarkable to outsiders but vital to the life within its walls. Even the city itself seemed to respond to the heat. Walls absorbed sunlight and radiated it slowly, stone tiles expanded with subtle creaks, and narrow streets funneled breezes that offered fleeting relief. The people moved with awareness of these elements, shifting their paths to catch shade, leaning against walls to rest, or carrying water to keep themselves and their tasks alive. The day unfolded without hurry, each moment a careful balance between exertion and endurance, between human effort and the desert's indifferent rhythm. By mid-afternoon, the city's quiet energy had reached a gentle peak. Courtyards, rooftops, and shaded arcades held clusters of people immersed in simple, necessary work. The city did not boast grand monuments or famous streets, yet every brick, every tool, and every gesture spoke of continuity, care, and the understated beauty of a life lived in harmony with place. Time moved softly here, unmarked by urgency, measured only by the shifting sun and the enduring routines of its residents. As the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, the city took on a warmer, amber hue. The sandstone walls glowed softly, their surfaces alive with the subtle interplay of light and shadow. The air, still heavy with the day's heat, carried the faint scent of baked earth and sun-warmed stone. In this late afternoon, movement shifted from purposeful labor to a quieter, more reflective rhythm. The city's pulse remained steady, yet there was a softness now, a slowing of motion as the heat eased and people began to prepare for the day's close. In the narrow streets, women moved carefully with baskets of food and water, balancing loads with practiced grace. Each step was deliberate, their attention divided between the tasks in hand and the subtle cues of the environment, the shifting shadows, the whispering wind, the occasional bird alighting on a low roof. Courtyards offered shade and respite, residents paused to rest briefly, sweeping sand from steps, arranging small gardens, or tending containers of water to ensure it remained cool in the fading sun. Artisans continued their work, though at a gentler pace. The blacksmith's hammer strikes became slower, deliberate, shaping the last pieces of the day's labor with careful precision. The potter's hands, wet with clay, moved rhythmically over the spinning wheel, forming vessels that would serve the household for months, or perhaps years. Nearby, a carpenter measured and carved, ensuring that every piece fit the needs of the city. There was no rush, no expectation of grandeur, only the quiet dedication to the continuity of life, each task a link in the chain of everyday existence. In the marketplace, baskets of dried fruits, seeds, and simple cloths were rearranged, dust brushed from surfaces, and pottery stacked neatly. The few customers who moved among the stalls did so slowly, quietly, their exchanges gentle and deliberate. The city's commerce was humble, devoid of spectacle, yet each small act of trade maintained the invisible threads that held the community together. Even the faint sounds of activity, soft clinks, the murmur of movement, the rustle of cloth, seemed amplified against the stillness of the desert beyond the walls. From rooftops, the warm afternoon light revealed the city in a new way. Chimneys and vents glowed softly, casting long, thin shadows across tiled rooftops. Birds moved silently, their wings catching the sun, while cats prowled along shaded walls, alert and purposeful. The streets themselves, paved with worn stone, held the traces of countless footsteps, each one a testament to the lives that had moved through this place for generations. There was beauty here, unremarkable and often overlooked, in the patterns of shadow, the gentle swell of the desert wind, and the quiet diligence of those who called the city home. By the late afternoon, the city seemed to pause collectively, a moment of shared awareness of the day's decline. People gathered briefly in courtyards, leaning against walls, carrying small tasks to completion before the sun sank further. Water jiggled in basins, soft birdsong filled narrow alleys, and the walls radiated the residual warmth of the sun. Each resident, absorbed in their own rhythm, contributed to the larger, unspoken order of the city, a city that existed not in fame or notoriety, but in the quiet persistence of daily life, shaped by hands and hearts that valued continuity above all else. The sun's descent painted the city in shades of amber, copper, and deep gold. Shadows stretched long across streets and courtyards, tracing the contours of worn stone and the uneven edges of rooftops. The air cooled slightly, carrying a hint of moisture from the desert night to come, and the city seemed to exhale, relaxing from the steady pulse of the day. The rhythm of life shifted once more, activity slowed, gestures became gentler, and a soft patience settled over every street and alley. Residents moved with careful attention to the changing light. Women carried jugs of water toward homes, their steps measured and unhurried, ensuring none of the precious liquid spilled. Children paused in the streets, tracing patterns in the dust with small sticks or crouching to examine insects that crawled cautiously along the stones. The sounds of the city softened, the clatter of tools faded, replaced by the occasional scrape of sweeping or the distant flapping of birds returning to their nests. In courtyards and shaded areas, food was prepared for the evening. Smoke curled slowly from small hearths, carrying the aroma of roasting grains and simmering herbs through the narrow streets. Bread baked earlier in the day was cut into portions, and water was poured carefully into clay vessels. There was no rush, every movement was deliberate, each gesture a quiet contribution to the continuity of life. Even the smallest acts, brushing dust from a doorstep, arranging a few pieces of cloth, or closing a window against the creeping cool, held meaning within the city's careful order. The blacksmith's forge was now dim, the red glow of metal fading as the sun's warmth subsided. The potter's wheel slowed to a gentle turn, and the carpenter's tools rested, arranged neatly for the next day's labor. Shadows on the walls shifted with the waning light, creating patterns that moved imperceptibly with the contours of stone and plaster. Birds flitted between rooftops in quiet pairs, and cats prowled the edges of courtyards, their movements nearly silent. The city felt both expansive and intimate, its size irrelevant to the sense of connection shared among those who lived within its walls. From the rooftops, the fading light revealed the desert beyond, a vast expanse that seemed endless and indifferent. Yet within this forgotten city, life persisted with subtle insistence. People paused for a moment to watch the sun touch the far dunes, to notice the shifting shadows, or to feel the cool breeze that crept in as the day gave way to evening. The city's beauty was quiet, embedded in routine and attention, in the measured gestures of work and care, in the patient maintenance of a way of life that had endured for generations. As twilight approached, the first lamps were lit in homes and courtyards. Their glow, small and steady, cast soft light on the walls, creating pools of warmth against the encroaching darkness. Residents moved carefully among these lights, finishing small tasks, tending fires, and preparing spaces for rest. The city, once active and sun-warmed, now seemed to fold gently into itself, embracing a slower rhythm as the day concluded, a rhythm shaped not by spectacle, but by the quiet constancy of survival, work, and shared life in a desert world almost forgotten by time. Night descended slowly, the last amber light of the sun fading into a cool, muted twilight. Shadows deepened across the streets, curling around doorways, walls, and low arches, until the city seemed cloaked in a soft, protective darkness. The desert beyond shimmered faintly in the dim light, waves of sand reflecting the final glow of day, and a gentle wind stirred, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and distant stone. Life within the city slowed almost to a hush, yet there remained a steady, quiet rhythm, one that spoke of endurance and care. Homes glowed softly with oil lamps and small fires, their flickering light spilling onto courtyards and narrow streets. Residents moved carefully between these pools of illumination, finishing evening chores and settling small arrangements in preparation for the night. Jars of water were topped up, clay pots aligned, and textiles folded with attention. Even the smallest details, the placement of a tool, the careful sweeping of a doorstep, were treated with reverence, each an act of sustaining the city's quiet continuity. In some corners, the soft patter of goats or the gentle brushing of a cat's tail against a wall was the only sound. Children had retreated indoors or into shaded alcoves, their play ceasing as the coolness settled in. A few lingered near lamplight, tracing shapes in the dust or studying the shadows cast by the flickering flames. The market square, once alive with the careful bustle of exchange, was now empty, save for a few remnants of the day, scattered seeds, a toppled basket, the faint scent of herbs and baked bread lingering in the air. Craftsmen had long since put away their tools. The blacksmith's forge was cold, the red glow of the metal extinguished, and the potter's wheel stood still, wet clay drying into the shapes of vessels that would serve households in the coming days. The carpenter's workshop was silent, saws and hammers resting against wooden benches. Every part of the city seemed to exhale as labor ceased, settling into the calm patterns of night. From rooftops and open windows, the first stars became visible, delicate points of light against the deepening sky. The desert beyond remained vast and silent, yet the city itself seemed alive in a gentler, more introspective way. Lamps illuminated windows and doorways, revealing glimpses of people in quiet conversation, of families arranging meals, of solitary figures pausing to watch the moon rise over the dunes. Even in darkness, the city's pulse continued, subtle but steady, maintained through the accumulated care and patience of generations. As night deepened, the wind carried faint whispers through narrow streets and alleys, the rustle of leaves, the soft clink of pottery, the distant steps of someone moving between homes. The city, forgotten by the wider world, existed entirely within itself, shaped by human hands, human attention, and a shared sense of quiet endurance. Each resident, absorbed in their evening routines, contributed to the larger harmony, preserving not wealth or fame, but the simple, essential life of a community hidden in the desert. By the time the moon hung high above the city, silver and still, the streets had grown nearly silent. Only the occasional movement, a cat padding softly along a wall, a gust of wind lifting a corner of a cloth, the faint trickle of water from a fountain, remained to testify to the life that persisted. In this quiet, the city seemed to breathe, patient and resilient, holding within it a world of ordinary acts that, collectively, told the story of a people living simply, yet completely, in harmony with their desert home. The city lay under the blanket of night, bathed in the cool silver light of the moon. Shadows deepened in every alley, courtyard, and doorway, merging with the soft darkness that filled spaces unseen. The desert surrounding the city seemed to stretch endlessly, a silent companion to the quiet streets within. The wind whispered gently, carrying the faint scent of sand and stone, reminding the city's few night wanderers of the fragile boundary between human habitation and the vast emptiness beyond. Few people moved now. Those who did were careful and deliberate, aware that every footstep echoed slightly in the stillness. A woman carried a small lamp to a rooftop, lighting it so that its soft glow would guide her home later. A man brought water to a single courtyard fountain, watching as droplets shimmered in the moonlight before settling into the basin. These acts, small yet deliberate, were like threads maintaining the city's quiet order, a tapestry woven of careful attention even in the night. Animals also moved with restraint. Cats prowled along shadowed walls, silent and graceful, pausing occasionally to observe the empty streets. Goats rested within fenced areas, their soft breaths mingling with the gentle rustle of palm fronds and the distant sigh of desert winds. Even the few birds that lingered in the city perched quietly, their feathers reflecting the pale glow of the moon as they settled for the night. Homes glowed faintly, oil lamps flickering as families prepared for sleep. Clay pots were placed gently on shelves, small fires died down, and textiles were folded or hung neatly, ready for the coolness of the night. In courtyards, the faint murmur of water moving through small channels added to the atmosphere of tranquility. Each movement was careful, slow, and purposeful, a subtle affirmation of life continuing in harmony with the rhythms of the city and the desert beyond. On the streets, dust lay undisturbed except where a solitary passerby had moved, leaving soft footprints that would fade as the wind brushed over them. Shadows from the tallest towers stretched long across the sand, merging with the darkness to create the illusion that the city itself was breathing, expanding and contracting with a silent, gentle rhythm. In these hours, the city's beauty was most apparent, not in grandeur or spectacle, but in the way ordinary actions, repeated over centuries, created a harmony that endured through time. Even as sleep beckoned, a quiet energy lingered. Residents paused to take in the night, to notice the interplay of light and shadow, the soft rustle of wind in the streets, the distant shimmer of stars above the desert. In these moments, the city revealed its secret. It thrived not through fame or recognition, but through the patient, attentive acts of countless individuals whose lives were intertwined with the place itself. In the deep, still night, the city existed in perfect balance, a fragile yet enduring haven, hidden from the wider world, sustained by care, routine, and quiet devotion to life within its walls. In the pre-dawn hours, the city rested under the deep indigo of the desert sky. Stars, countless and distant, glittered above, mirrored faintly in small pools of water left in fountains and basins. The moon had begun its slow descent, casting a softer, paler light than in the height of night. Streets were empty and silent, yet a subtle shift hinted at the approaching day. Shadows softened, and the air, cooled by hours of darkness, carried the faint scent of earth and stone, a promise of warmth to come. Some residents stirred quietly, moving with cautious precision. A woman carried a small lamp to the threshold of her home, preparing for morning tasks. A man checked the alignment of clay pots on a low wall, ensuring that dew or condensation would not disturb their contents. These movements were minimal but deliberate, as if the city itself whispered a gentle reminder that life would soon resume, and the rhythm of labor and care must begin anew. The animals were the first to sense the change. Goats shifted uneasily within their pens, lifting heads and listening to faint sounds from distant rooftops. Cats slinked along walls, soft paws barely audible against the stone, as they stretched and flexed in preparation for the quiet hunt of early morning. Birds stirred in their hidden perches, their faint calls mingling with the whispering wind that traveled down narrow alleys, rustling fabrics hung out to dry and leaves in small gardens. Courtyards glimmered with a gentle, reflective light. Pools of water mirrored the stars above, and dew clung to leaves, stones, and low walls, each droplet catching the first hints of approaching sunlight. The city seemed suspended between night and day, a delicate moment where stillness and anticipation coexisted. Every element, the stone, the sand, the lingering scent of herbs, and the faint warmth in sheltered corners, was attuned to the coming transition. Inside homes, small lamps flickered briefly as early risers moved quietly, drawing water, tending small fires, or arranging the previous day's tools for the next round of work. Even the simple act of preparing clay for pottery, sweeping a courtyard, or moving bread from storage into the first rays of light carried weight in this fragile, suspended time. Every gesture, though small, was part of the continuity that had preserved this city for generations, an enduring testament to patience, care, and human attention to detail. The desert beyond the city remained silent, vast, and indifferent. Yet within these walls, life had already begun to respond to its edges. A distant bird shifted on a roof, a goat nudged at the gate of its pen, and the first faint stirrings of wind hinted at movement across sand dunes. The city seemed to inhale collectively, a quiet acknowledgement that soon the sun would rise again, casting light on the enduring, meticulous rhythm of its inhabitants. In this pre-dawn hour, the hidden city revealed its secret. Its strength was in the patient, steady care of ordinary life, each person's attention woven into the fabric of community and survival. The first thin rays of sunlight stretched over the desert horizon, casting a pale gold glow across the quiet city. Walls of sandstone caught the light and seemed to shimmer faintly, revealing textures and colors unnoticed in darkness. The air carried the subtle warmth of dawn, still cool enough to move freely without discomfort, and every corner of the city began to emerge from shadow. A new day had begun, though its unfolding was gentle, measured, and deliberate. Residents began their early morning routines with care. A woman carried fresh water from the fountain to her small courtyard, tipping it into clay basins to nourish plants that clung stubbornly to life in the arid environment. A man swept dust from the street outside his home, brushing it into neat piles along the edges, a ritual that both maintained order and created a sense of calm. Even the smallest acts, the folding of a cloth, the brushing of a wall, the positioning of a jar to catch sunlight, were infused with purpose, each contributing to the ongoing continuity of life in this hidden place. In the market square, vendors slowly emerged, arranging goods in careful rows. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and spices caught the morning light, glowing softly with colors muted but rich, ochres, warm reds, deep creams, and sun-bleached yellows. The air carried the faint fragrance of earth, herbs, and baking bread, signaling to all that the day's work had begun. Exchanges were quiet and unhurried, transactions made with subtle gestures rather than words, reinforcing trust and shared understanding among those who lived within the city walls. Children moved through the streets, tentative and curious in the soft light. Some followed animals from the pens, watching their movements with fascination, while others traced patterns in the dust, their small hands leaving fleeting marks that the morning wind would erase. The streets themselves seemed to breathe with the coming day, stones warming under the sun, dust shifting gently, and shadows retreating to the west as light claimed each surface. Artisans returned to their workspaces, guided by the gentle illumination of dawn. The blacksmith prepared his forge, kindling small flames that would soon glow red-hot, while the potter dampened clay and began to spin it into the shapes that would sustain daily life. Carpenters measured and cut with precision, their hands steady and familiar with the textures of wood and stone. Each movement, repeated day after day, wove together into the unseen architecture of community, a harmony of effort, attention, and care that had endured for generations in this forgotten city. From rooftops, the vast desert beyond seemed less distant in the soft glow of morning. Dunes appeared golden and alive, the wind tracing subtle patterns across their surfaces. Birds began to stir more boldly, flitting from rooftop to rooftop, their faint songs filling the quiet air. Even in this remote and nearly forgotten place, life moved in a deliberate rhythm, each resident, each animal, and each element of the environment participating in the careful balance that defined the city. The sun's first warmth brought not urgency, but awareness, a recognition that a new day had arrived, and that the ongoing story of survival, work, and quiet endurance would continue, as it always had, in the folds of the desert. As the sun rose higher, the city basked in the clear light of morning. The golden tones of sandstone walls deepened, and shadows retreated into narrow alleys and shaded courtyards. The air carried a subtle warmth, enough to stir movement but still gentle on skin and stone alike. The city, once cloaked in the soft silence of night and pre-dawn, now hummed with the understated rhythm of daily life. In the central square, vendors moved with deliberate care, arranging goods and checking supplies. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and simple clay vessels were aligned meticulously, their forms catching the sunlight to reveal textures and hues unnoticed in dimmer hours. Herbs, carefully tied and laid out, released faint fragrances that mingled with the scent of sun-warmed stone and the faint aroma of bread baked in the morning ovens. Every display, every placement of an item, reflected not only practicality but also the quiet pride of those who had maintained the city's rhythm for generations. Children began to move more boldly through the streets, their curiosity and energy filling empty spaces with life. They chased one another across courtyards, their laughter muted by the high walls, or traced lines in the dust, leaving temporary patterns that shifted under the breeze. A few followed the paths of goats or cats, observing each subtle movement with fascination. The city's streets, warmed by the sun, carried the soft sounds of activity, footsteps on stone, the shuffle of baskets, and the quiet clink of clay as items were arranged or lifted. Artisans returned fully to their labor. The blacksmith's hammer rang against glowing metal, each strike deliberate and precise, creating tools and objects that would serve the community for days or months. The potter's hands shaped clay with practiced skill, forming vessels whose curves reflected both function and artistry. Carpenters measured, carved, and fitted pieces of wood, the faint scent of sawdust mixing with sun-warmed stone and herbs from nearby gardens. Even in their ordinary work, there was rhythm and beauty, a silent choreography that bound the city together. In courtyards and shaded walkways, women tended to small gardens, watering plants and adjusting protective coverings against the growing sun. Jugs of water were carried to rooftops and basins, children helped where they could, and soft movements maintained the balance between human effort and the city's delicate ecosystem. The wind, gentle but persistent, traveled down alleys, lifting dust and fabrics, and reminding everyone of the desert beyond the walls, a constant, silent presence shaping their lives. By mid-morning, the city was fully awake. Every corner, every courtyard, every rooftop held movement, however small. The rhythm was not frantic or hurried, but steady and deliberate: bread baked, water drawn, clay molded, fabric woven, animals tended, and children observed and learned. Life here was ordinary in its tasks, yet extraordinary in its continuity. In this forgotten city, hidden deep in the desert, every small action contributed to a larger, unspoken harmony, a testament to the patient, enduring beauty of daily life. By late morning, the sun had climbed high enough to cast a bright, steady light over the city. The warm tones of sandstone glowed under its rays, and shadows settled in the narrowest alleys and beneath roof overhangs. The air had become dry and fragrant, carrying faint hints of sun-warmed earth, baked clay, and herbs from small gardens tucked in courtyards. Life in the city pulsed quietly, each resident absorbed in routines that had been repeated for generations, forming the invisible architecture of a world sustained by care and attention. Artisans moved with practiced precision. The blacksmith's hammer struck rhythmically against the anvil, echoing faintly between walls, shaping tools and implements for daily use. The potter's hands were wet with clay, guiding the wheel in smooth, confident motions that produced vessels both functional and subtly elegant. The carpenter measured, cut, and fitted wood, each movement deliberate, informed by experience and a steady attention to the smallest detail. These ordinary labors, repeated day after day, were the foundation of the city's enduring stability, a silent testament to the continuity of human effort. In the market, baskets and trays of goods were arranged with care. Dried fruits, herbs, seeds, and simple pottery waited patiently in neat rows, their muted colors illuminated by the sun. Exchanges between vendors and neighbors were quiet and unhurried, consisting mostly of gestures, small nods, and the precise movement of objects. There was no hurry, no clamor for profit, only the calm flow of practical trade, sustaining both life and relationships. Children explored the city with cautious curiosity, moving along rooftops, tracing patterns in dust, or observing animals. Goats grazed quietly within fenced areas, while cats prowled along walls and roof tiles, their soft footsteps barely audible on the sun-warmed stone. Even birds, fewer than in more fertile regions, flitted between low towers and courtyards, adding gentle movement to the sunlit stillness. The city's quiet pulse was alive in these subtle details, in the interplay of sun, shadow, and daily care. In courtyards, residents attended to gardens and water channels. Small plants, surviving in pockets of soil sheltered from wind and sun, were nurtured meticulously, each leaf and stem attended to as though it were part of the city's lifeblood. Water was drawn from wells or basins, poured carefully into pots or channels, and circulated in a rhythm that mirrored the care given to all aspects of city life. Even these smallest gestures, sweeping dust, adjusting shade, tending animals, were part of the invisible, ongoing labor that allowed the city to endure unnoticed by the wider world. By the approach of noon, the city's energy had reached a quiet crescendo. Movement was steady, purposeful, yet unhurried. Every action, from the blacksmith's hammer to the children's play in the dust, from the careful arrangement of produce to the nurturing of plants, contributed to the shared harmony of life here. In this forgotten desert city, life unfolded in a deliberate, measured rhythm, simple and ordinary in its individual parts, yet remarkable in its endurance, continuity, and quiet beauty. By mid-afternoon, the sun had climbed high into the sky, casting a brilliant, almost harsh light over the city. The walls of sandstone glowed, radiating heat onto the streets and courtyards below. Shadows became precious, providing the only refuge from the relentless sun. The desert air, dry and warm, carried the faint scent of baked earth and sun-heated stone, reminding every resident of the fragile balance between labor and endurance, effort and rest. Movement slowed in response to the heat. Residents sought shade in narrow alleys, under roof overhangs, or within the cool interiors of their homes. Courtyards became temporary havens, where small fountains and water basins offered both refreshment and gentle sounds that calmed the senses. Women tended gardens with care, but paused frequently to rest or adjust shading for delicate plants. Children retreated to quieter corners, playing softly in shaded patches, their movements careful, measured, and slow. Artisans adapted to the midday sun. The blacksmith paused his hammering, moving metal into the shade, and allowed the forge's residual warmth to continue shaping his work. The potter's wheel turned more slowly, and he wet his hands frequently to prevent the clay from drying too quickly in the heat. Carpenters worked in shadowed nooks, adjusting the angle of sunlit beams to maintain both precision and comfort. Each task continued, but with a gentleness and patience dictated by the harshness of the hour. In the marketplace, the quiet hum of activity persisted. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and herbs glimmered in the sun, but most exchanges were subdued. Vendors and neighbors spoke little, relying instead on careful gestures and the movement of goods between hands. The city's commerce, modest and deliberate, seemed almost ceremonial, a reflection of the steady, patient rhythm that defined life here. Even in the heat, order and attention remained paramount, preserving both sustenance and harmony. Animals too adjusted to the intensity of the sun. Goats rested in pens, heads lowered, avoiding unnecessary movement. Cats stretched lazily along shaded walls or crouched quietly in corners, their eyes tracking the faintest signs of prey. Birds became less active, perching in protected areas until the air cooled. The city, though bathed in brilliance and heat, remained alive, attuned to its environment, and resilient in its slow, measured response. By late afternoon, the heat began to ease slightly, and the city's pulse, though diminished in speed, remained steady. The contrast between sunlit walls and shaded alleys created a delicate interplay of light and shadow, while the faint sound of water, the rustle of fabric, and the soft movement of animals reminded all that life persisted, uninterrupted, even in the harshest conditions. In this forgotten desert city, the daily cycle unfolded with remarkable patience, ordinary in each individual task, yet extraordinary in its quiet endurance and subtle beauty. As the sun began its gradual descent, the oppressive heat of midday softened, leaving the city bathed in a warm, golden glow. Shadows lengthened and stretched across streets and courtyards, offering comfort to those who had sought refuge during the hottest hours. The air carried the faint scent of sun-baked stone, herbs, and distant desert sands, mingling with the subtle freshness of water drawn from basins and fountains. Life, once slowed by heat, began to move again, deliberate and gentle, yet renewed with energy. Residents emerged from shaded corners and cool interiors, resuming tasks that had paused during the height of the sun. Women carried water to plants and animals, tending gardens with careful hands and adjusting coverings to protect tender leaves from lingering warmth. Children returned to courtyards and streets, chasing one another in measured play or quietly observing small details in their environment. Their laughter, soft and intermittent, floated through alleys and across rooftops, punctuating the calm hum of daily life. Artisans returned fully to their work. The blacksmith rekindled the forge, the red glow of metal reflecting in the sunlit courtyards as he shaped tools and implements with practiced precision. The potter's hands moved swiftly yet carefully over the spinning wheel, molding clay into vessels that would serve families for weeks and months. Carpenters measured and adjusted wooden structures, their sawdust mingling with the warm air, and their movements careful to avoid errors in the bright, shifting light. Every action, repetitive yet essential, contributed to the city's quiet harmony, binding its residents together in shared purpose. The marketplace stirred once more. Baskets and trays of dried fruits, seeds, and handmade pottery caught the late afternoon sun, their muted colors glowing with gentle warmth. Exchanges between vendors and neighbors were soft and deliberate, a handful of herbs traded for a small clay jar, a portion of grain exchanged for dates. Words were few, gestures sufficed. Each interaction reinforced the bonds of trust and mutual dependence that had sustained the city for generations. Animals responded to the changing light. Goats stretched and grazed cautiously in pens, their movements measured after hours of rest. Cats prowled along shaded walls, slipping silently between sunlit patches. Birds flitted from rooftop to rooftop, their movements delicate and cautious, yet alive with the rhythm of the day. Even in the smallest creatures, the pulse of life mirrored the careful tempo of human activity, reinforcing the balance between residents, animals, and environment. By late afternoon, the city exuded a sense of serene continuity. Every courtyard, street, and rooftop participated in the quiet choreography of daily life. Simple tasks, drawing water, tending animals, arranging goods, or shaping clay, were not extraordinary on their own, yet collectively they sustained the city's hidden world. In this forgotten desert enclave, the day unfolded as it had for generations, measured, deliberate, and rich in ordinary beauty, a testament to patience, care, and the enduring rhythm of life in harmony with the desert. As the sun dipped lower toward the horizon, the city was bathed in a soft, amber light that softened the textures of sandstone walls and cooled the air slightly. Shadows stretched long across courtyards and streets, blending with the gentle contours of rooftops and low arches. The desert beyond glowed faintly, waves of sand catching the last warmth of the day. The city, once alive with full midday energy, now entered a more reflective rhythm. Work continued, but with a gentleness that mirrored the slow descent of the sun. Residents moved with deliberate care. Women tended gardens and arranged water basins, adjusting coverings for delicate plants and pouring water carefully into clay vessels. Children, their play winding down, traced soft lines in the dust or followed quietly after goats as they grazed, their movements calm and measured. Courtyards and alleys became spaces of pause and preparation, where the day's work was completed and the city readied itself for the cooling evening. Artisans continued their tasks with a slower, mindful pace. The blacksmith shaped the final pieces of metal, his hammer striking rhythmically, echoing faintly through the quiet streets. The potters will turn steadily, clay taking on smooth, finished forms, while carpenters completed careful adjustments to wooden frames and tools, ensuring that everything was ready for the following day. Every motion, though ordinary, reflected a continuity and patience that bound the city's inhabitants together in quiet harmony. In the marketplace, the arrangement of goods was adjusted for the fading light. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and spices glimmered in the soft amber glow. Exchanges between neighbors were slow and deliberate, a small portion of herbs traded, a clay vessel passed to another household, a few grains counted and weighed. Every act, however small, reinforced connections, trust, and interdependence, a silent web holding the city together across generations. Animals responded to the changing light. Goats moved languidly through pens, heads lowered in the soft warmth of evening. Cats prowled rooftops and courtyards, careful in their movements, eyes reflecting the glow of lamplight as residents began to light small lamps and fires. Birds perched silently in corners, their day winding to a close. Even the faint rustle of palm fronds or the whisper of wind along stone walls seemed amplified in this softer hour, a reminder of the city's delicate, enduring balance with the desert. By the approach of sunset, the city seemed to exhale collectively. Courtyards glowed softly with fading sunlight, and the gentle flicker of lamps cast warm pools of light within homes and along streets. Residents paused for brief moments to observe the desert beyond the walls, the sky streaked with gold and pink, and the shifting shadows within their city. Each person, each act of care, each subtle gesture reinforced the rhythm of ordinary life, a rhythm that had persisted unnoticed for generations. In this hidden city, forgotten by the world, the ordinary carried its own quiet, enduring grandeur, revealed most clearly in the calm, amber-lit streets of evening. The sun sank slowly below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of deep orange, rose, and violet. The city, once bathed in the warm glow of afternoon, softened under the lengthening shadows. Courtyards, alleys, and rooftops were touched with the subtle gradient of dusk, and the air carried the cool, comforting hint of approaching night. Life in the city shifted naturally into a quieter rhythm, where ordinary tasks intertwined with the anticipation of rest. Residents moved with measured calm, completing the day's final duties. Women adjusted coverings on small gardens, ensuring tender plants were protected from the evening chill. Water was poured carefully into basins and clay vessels, small splashes catching the last golden light before merging silently with still pools. Children lingered in quiet corners or rooftops, their play reduced to soft observation or gentle tracing of patterns in dust, absorbing the subtle changes of light and shadow around them. Artisans worked in the final glow of day. The blacksmith struck the last few blows on a nearly finished tool, the metal glinting briefly in the fading light. The potter's hands shaped the final vessels, smooth curves emerging from the wheel with the rhythm of practiced patience. Carpenters made finishing adjustments to doors, frames, and furniture, their movements careful and deliberate, ensuring that everything was ready for the approaching night. Each action, though unremarkable on its own, was essential to maintaining the balance and continuity of city life. In the marketplace, goods were arranged one last time before nightfall. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and herbs were stacked neatly, while simple pottery was returned to shaded shelves. Small exchanges continued quietly, a handful of herbs given to a neighbor, a portion of grain measured carefully, a clay jar passed from one hand to another. These small acts, slow and deliberate, reaffirmed the web of interdependence that had sustained the city for generations. Animals, attuned to the changing light, adjusted their routines. Goats rested calmly in pens, heads lowered, occasionally lifting to watch the movement of humans. Cats prowled softly, their eyes catching glimmers of dying sunlight and flickering lamplight. Birds, few in number, settled into hidden perches, silent as the city's shadows deepened. Even the whisper of the evening wind through alleys and over rooftops seemed heightened, a delicate accompaniment to the city's ritual of winding down. As darkness slowly claimed the streets, lamps and small fires were lit. Their flickering glow cast pools of warmth onto walls, floors, and courtyards, creating intimate pockets of light within the expanding shadow. Residents moved carefully among them, tending fires, checking basins, and arranging their homes for comfort through the night. The city, now veiled in twilight, revealed its quiet secret. Life here was preserved not through grandeur or recognition, but through attentive, ordinary acts repeated with patience and care, each contributing to the enduring harmony of a world hidden in the desert. Darkness settled gradually over the city, wrapping streets, rooftops, and courtyards in a soft, velvety shadow. The last traces of sunset faded, leaving only a deep indigo sky dotted with countless stars, each twinkling faintly above the desert beyond the walls. The air cooled noticeably, carrying the dry scent of stone and sand, and the faint fragrance of plants tended during the day. Life slowed almost to a whisper, yet the city remained alive, its quiet rhythm now measured in the subtle gestures of preparation for the night. Residents moved softly, their steps careful on the warm stone streets. Women extinguished small fires, tending lanterns or oil lamps that would provide a gentle glow throughout the night. Clay pots and jars were arranged neatly in homes and courtyards, each placement deliberate, preserving order and calm. Children had long since retired to quiet corners or small rooms, their soft breathing blending with the occasional rustle of fabric or the whisper of evening wind. Artisans concluded their daily work. The blacksmith's forge had cooled completely, the anvil silent for hours. The potter set the wheel aside, wet clay hardened into smooth, practical vessels, ready for household use. Carpenters cleaned tools and arranged them carefully, ensuring that every piece of wood and instrument was in place for the next day. Even in this ordinary cessation, there was a rhythm, a continuity that defined the city's hidden life, unbroken and patient across countless days and nights. The marketplace, empty now of human activity, retained the subtle traces of the day. Baskets of dried fruits, herbs, and grains rested undisturbed, pottery stacked neatly. The soft rustle of the evening breeze occasionally shifted items slightly, a reminder that even in stillness, life moved quietly through the city. Each corner, alley, and roof carried a faint warmth from the day's sun, gradually releasing it into the cooling night air. Animals adjusted to the deepening darkness. Goats huddled calmly in pens, their low breathing mingling with the gentle creak of wooden gates. Cats prowled silently, slipping along walls and rooftops, their eyes gleaming briefly in lamplight. Birds remained perched, silent and watchful, as if aware of the city's slow descent into rest. Even the wind, carrying faint grains of sand and dust, seemed tempered, flowing softly through narrow streets, adding a gentle accompaniment to the near silence of life within the walls. By deep night, only the subtle glow of lamps and small fires illuminated portions of the city. Residents moved quietly among these pockets of light, finishing minor tasks or preparing for sleep. The city, though hidden from the wider world and largely forgotten, revealed its enduring truth. its strength lay not in grandeur or recognition, but in the patient, attentive care of its inhabitants. In these quiet hours, every ordinary act, placing water, tending animals, adjusting clay vessels, was a thread in the enduring tapestry of life, a testament to the city's resilience and the steady rhythm of human existence in harmony with the desert. The city had settled into the profound quiet of deep night. Shadows had swallowed streets and courtyards entirely, leaving only the faint glow of oil lamps in a few windows and the subtle reflection of starlight on polished stone surfaces. The air was cool and still, carrying the gentle scent of earth, stone, and residual warmth from the day's sun. In this hour, the city felt suspended, existing in a delicate balance between motion and stillness, its life whispered rather than spoken. Few humans moved now. Those who did were deliberate, careful to disturb nothing as they completed minor chores, arranging a stray pot, checking a small fire, or ensuring water basins were full and clean. Every movement was measured, each step slow, as though the very city itself demanded reverence in this time of near-total silence. Children slept deeply, their soft breaths mingling with the occasional creak of a wooden door or the faint rustle of a curtain moved by the night wind. Artisans rested, their tools set aside. The blacksmith's hammer lay still on the anvil, the red glow of metal long extinguished. The potter's wheel was quiet, the final clay forms firm and waiting. Carpenters had laid aside saws and chisels, their workshop cooled and orderly. Yet even in this cessation, the city's rhythm continued, sustained by the invisible energy of past and future labor, a continuity that defined the hidden life of this forgotten desert settlement. Animals were the quiet guardians of the night. Goats huddled together, their soft breathing punctuating the near silence. Cats moved stealthily along walls and rooftops, alert to every shift of shadow and light. Occasional calls of distant birds or the subtle rustle of wings reminded the city that life, though diminished, persisted. Even the wind, brushing softly through narrow alleys and across low walls, seemed in concert with the city's measured pulse. In courtyards, pools of water reflected tiny points of starlight, creating a sense of infinite depth in miniature. Clay vessels, carefully positioned for utility and safety, glimmered faintly in the lamplight. The city's stones, worn smooth over generations, radiated the faint residual warmth of the sun, comforting and familiar. Each element, no matter how small, participated in the ongoing tapestry of life, an ordinary, yet extraordinary orchestration of existence. By this hour, the city had become nearly invisible, not in its absence, but in the subtlety of its presence. Every lamp, every quietly moving shadow, every soft sound contributed to a world both intimate and enduring. Life continued, not through spectacle or grandeur, but through patience, care, and the quiet dedication of its inhabitants. Even in the heart of night, the city's hidden rhythm persisted, a testament to resilience, attentiveness, and the timeless beauty of ordinary life in harmony with the desert. The night deepened, and the city lay in almost complete darkness, lit only by the faintest glow of distant stars and the occasional flicker of a lamp behind a window. Silence pervaded the streets, interrupted only by the soft rustle of wind through narrow alleys and the whisper of leaves in hidden gardens. The air was cool, carrying the scent of earth, stone, and the lingering warmth of the desert sand that the sun had baked hours before. The city seemed suspended in time, its heartbeat slow and deliberate, a rhythm almost imperceptible to the outside world. Few humans were active. Those who moved did so with extreme care, tending minor needs that could not wait until dawn, refilling water basins, straightening a clay pot, or adjusting a small fire to provide warmth through the night. Every gesture was subtle, quiet, and intentional, reinforcing the invisible continuity that sustained the city. The children were entirely still, tucked away in small rooms or shaded courtyards, their breathing soft and regular, merging with the gentle cadence of the night. Artisans rested fully. The blacksmith's forge was cold, the anvil silent. The potter's wheel held its still clay, waiting for the first light of morning. Carpenters' tools rested neatly, their sharp edges hidden, the scent of sawdust and wood lingering faintly in cool workshops. Even in repose, the city's essence remained, a network of deliberate, repeated actions, a rhythm built over generations that pulsed quietly beneath the night's surface. Animals moved sparingly. Goats huddled in their pens, their bodies warm against the cool night air, shifting occasionally in soft, rhythmic movements. Cats prowled along rooftops and walls, eyes glimmering like tiny lanterns, ears alert to every subtle sound. Birds, few but present, remained perched silently, their feathers ruffling faintly in the gentle night wind. Even insects and small creatures added to the subtle symphony of the city, almost imperceptible but integral to the quiet life that continued. Pools of water in courtyards reflected stars and the occasional lamplight, creating miniature constellations on the stone surfaces. Clay vessels glimmered faintly, cool and silent, while walls, smoothed and sun-warmed during the day, radiated a comforting residual heat. The city, nearly invisible in the deep night, was revealed in these smallest details: the careful positioning of objects, the soft movements of residents and animals, the subtle interaction of wind, shadow, and starlight. In this profound quiet, the city revealed its enduring secret: it thrived not through grandeur or attention, but through meticulous care, patience, and the ordinary actions of those who called it home. Even in the deepest hours of night, life persisted. Every gesture, every movement, every breath contributed to the ongoing rhythm that had sustained the city across countless days and generations, hidden from the wider world, yet full of quiet, persistent beauty. In the late hours of night, the city rested under a velvet sky, the stars above mirrored faintly in pools of water in courtyards and basins. The desert beyond lay motionless, vast and silent, yet the first subtle shifts of wind hinted at the coming change. Shadows softened even further, blending walls, rooftops, and alleyways into a single, muted landscape. The air carried the delicate scent of cooled stone and sand, mingled with faint traces of herbs tended during the day, a quiet reminder that life persisted even in this profound stillness. A few residents stirred gently, the earliest among them sensing the shift toward dawn. Movements were soft and deliberate, a clay pot adjusted to catch the faintest light, water poured carefully into a basin to sustain the plants, a small fire rekindled in preparation for the morning. Children remained still, nestled in quiet corners or sheltered rooms, while adults observed a rhythm known only to those accustomed to the city's pulse, each gesture part of an enduring pattern that bridged night and day. Artisans rested, yet even in their repose, their work seemed to linger in the air. The blacksmith's anvil remained silent, but the faint scent of metal and coal persisted, a memory of the day's labor. The potter's wheel held smooth vessels in place, and the faint coolness of clay reflected the night's chill. Carpenters' workshops were ordered and quiet, sawdust settling into the corners, tools awaiting the first light. In the absence of active work, the city itself seemed to hum softly, alive in the accumulated care of centuries. Animals shifted subtly in the cooling night air. Goats breathed softly in pens, stretching or moving slightly in their sleep. Cats prowled rooftops, careful and almost ceremonial in their steps, observing the streets and alleys with quiet awareness. Birds perched in hidden corners, their feathers barely ruffling, still alert despite the deep darkness. Even the wind, brushing against walls and through small gardens, moved slowly and intentionally, echoing the city's patient rhythm. Pools of water glimmered faintly as the night deepened, reflecting stars and the occasional lamplight. Clay vessels, neatly arranged in courtyards, held the cool night air, their surfaces smooth and silent. The city, hidden from the wider world, displayed its quiet strength in these simple details: the attentive placement of objects, the subtle movements of inhabitants and animals, the careful balance of shadow and residual warmth. Life here continued, unremarkable in its individual moments, yet extraordinary in its continuity and harmony. In these final hours before the approaching dawn, the city's secret endured. It thrived not through spectacle, but through patience, care, and ordinary acts repeated across generations. Even in the deepest night, the rhythm of life persisted, steady and unbroken, a testament to resilience and the hidden, persistent beauty of a community living quietly in the desert. The horizon began to lighten with the first delicate hues of dawn. Pale pink and soft gold spread slowly across the desert sky, casting a gentle illumination over the city's sandstone walls. Shadows, long and deep through the night, began to retreat, folding into corners and alleys as sunlight touched rooftops and courtyards. The air carried a faint warmth mingled with the coolness of night, a subtle promise of the new day to come. Residents stirred almost imperceptibly at first. The earliest risers moved carefully through narrow streets and quiet courtyards, adjusting clay pots, replenishing water in basins, and preparing gardens for the day's heat. Children, sensing the subtle shift in light, peeked from small windows or crawled from their sleeping corners, their curiosity tempered by the lingering calm of the night. Each movement was deliberate, measured, and harmonious, reflecting the patient rhythm that had sustained this hidden city for generations. Artisans reawakened alongside the dawn. The blacksmith rekindled his forge, flames flickering softly, casting warm reflections on nearby walls. Metal was tested and prepared for the day's labor, each strike of the hammer echoing faintly but with controlled, purposeful rhythm. The potter's wheel spun once more, clay taking shape under practiced hands. Carpenters emerged from shaded workshops, organizing tools and checking measurements, readying their materials for tasks that would carry the city into midday. Animals responded to the first light. Goats rose slowly, stretching and nibbling at fresh fodder, their movements careful in the soft dawn. Cats prowled along walls and rooftops, eyes reflecting the soft glow of the rising sun, alert yet unhurried. Birds took tentative flight from hidden perches, their quiet calls mixing with the gentle rustle of wind through alleys and palm fronds. Even the desert beyond seemed to exhale softly, the shifting sands catching the earliest light and echoing the awakening of the city within. Courtyards and fountains mirrored the delicate colors of the sky, droplets of water glinting in the pale sun. Clay vessels, carefully arranged during the night, caught tiny flashes of gold as sunlight touched them. The streets, long empty in darkness, now began to hum with subtle, quiet life. Every movement, from adjusting a pot to tending an animal, reflected the continuity of care that defined the city. The ordinary acts of daily life, simple yet precise, harmonized with the rhythm of the desert, revealing the hidden beauty and endurance of this forgotten settlement. With the first full rays of sunlight, the city gradually came alive. The rhythm of life resumed its steady, unhurried pace, artisans, residents, and animals all contributing to the quiet orchestration of daily existence. In this hidden desert enclave, every ordinary gesture carried extraordinary significance, a delicate balance of survival, care, and quiet beauty, unfolding once again in the soft, golden light of dawn. The sun climbed higher, casting warm, steady light across the city. Sandstone walls glowed with soft gold and ochre, courtyards shimmered under the morning sun, and shadows retreated into narrow alleys and shaded corners. The air was dry but gentle, carrying the faint scent of earth, baked clay, and herbs tended during the early hours. Life moved steadily, deliberate and measured, as the city embraced the full energy of morning. Residents went about their tasks with quiet focus. Women carried water from fountains to gardens and basins, carefully arranging plants and adjusting coverings to protect tender leaves from the growing warmth. Children explored the streets cautiously, chasing one another in short bursts of play or tracing shapes in the dust, their movements soft and careful, blending curiosity with the unspoken rhythm of the city. Every gesture, though ordinary, reinforced the continuity and harmony of daily life. Artisans worked with precise efficiency. The blacksmith's hammer rang rhythmically against the anvil, shaping tools and implements needed for daily survival. The potter's wheel spun smoothly, clay forming into vessels both practical and elegant. Carpenters measured, cut, and adjusted wood, their sawdust mixing with the sun-warmed air, their hands steady with experience. The city's life was orchestrated in these seemingly small tasks, every motion a note in the ongoing melody of ordinary, enduring labor. In the marketplace, goods were displayed neatly. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and herbs glimmered in sunlight, while simple clay pots reflected the warm hues of sandstone walls. Exchanges between vendors and neighbors were calm and deliberate, a handful of grain traded for a clay vessel, a few herbs passed along with a nod, the weight of each act felt as meaningful as its necessity. The slow, steady pace of commerce mirrored the rhythm of the entire city, emphasizing care and attention rather than haste or spectacle. Animals moved alongside humans in harmony with the day. Goats grazed calmly, stepping carefully in courtyards and pens. Cats prowled walls and rooftops, soft paws barely audible on the warm stone. Birds flitted between low towers and rooftops, their quiet calls blending with the rustle of palm fronds and the faint breeze carrying desert scents. Every element, human, animal, and natural, participated in the careful choreography of city life. By mid-morning, the city had fully awakened. Courtyards, streets, and rooftops were alive with subtle movement, water drawn, clay molded, bread prepared, tools readied. Each ordinary act, repeated day after day, was part of the enduring fabric of the city's life. In this forgotten desert enclave, the harmony of daily labor and care created a rhythm that had persisted for generations, revealing a quiet beauty born not from grandeur, but from attentive, deliberate living. By late morning, the sun had risen high, its rays pouring down with steady intensity over the city. Sandstone walls radiated warmth, alleys became narrow corridors of shade, and courtyards glimmered with heat. The air was dry and heavy, carrying faint scents of baked earth, herbs, and clay, mingling with the subtle warmth left behind by the desert sand. The city responded naturally to the rising heat, slowing its pace and adapting the rhythm of life to the sun's relentless presence. Residents moved more deliberately. Women lingered in shaded courtyards, tending to small gardens or adjusting coverings over plants to prevent sunburn. Water basins were refilled, carefully pouring droplets to nourish leaves and soil without spilling into dust. Children played quietly under shadowed walls, or remained seated in corners tracing patterns in the dust. Even in reduced activity, life continued in gentle, measured forms, a reflection of the city's enduring rhythm. Artisans adapted their work to the heat. The blacksmith paused briefly, moving metal into shaded areas, allowing the residual warmth of the forge to maintain the necessary heat. The potter slowed the rotation of the wheel, wetting hands frequently to prevent clay from drying too quickly. Carpenters chose shaded spots to continue measuring and cutting, adjusting tools to maintain precision while avoiding the glare of the sun. Each task, ordinary and repetitive, was executed with patience and care, a testament to the city's resilient routine. In the marketplace, activity persisted, though subdued. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and clay vessels glimmered in the bright sunlight, yet exchanges between neighbors were slow, deliberate gestures rather than hurried transactions. A handful of herbs was passed with care, a portion of grain shifted precisely into a container. Even commerce, modest and understated, adhered to the rhythm imposed by heat and necessity, emphasizing thoughtfulness over speed. Animals adjusted to the sun's intensity. Goats rested in pens, lying in shaded corners, moving only occasionally. Cats prowled carefully along walls and rooftops, eyes alert but bodies conserving energy. Birds perched silently, wings folded, waiting for cooler moments before movement. The city itself seemed to respond to the desert's demands, a quiet choreography of endurance and adaptation, where every creature and inhabitant participated in the measured flow of life. By midday, the city's energy had slowed, but it remained alive, steady, and enduring. Courtyards glimmered, streets hummed with soft movement, and rooftops reflected the bright light of the sun. Ordinary tasks, watering plants, shaping clay, adjusting tools, tending animals, continued, each a deliberate act contributing to the hidden harmony of this forgotten desert settlement. In the intense heat, the city revealed its quiet strength, patience, care, and the rhythm of life sustained in delicate balance with the sun and the desert around it. As the sun began its slow descent toward the west, the intense heat of midday softened, leaving the city bathed in warm, gentle light. Shadows lengthened across streets, courtyards, and rooftops, offering comfortable spaces for movement. The air, still dry, carried the faint scent of baked stone, earth, and herbs, but the oppressive weight of midday heat lifted, allowing life to resume a fuller rhythm. Residents, rested from the quiet hours of noon, gradually emerged from shaded corners, courtyards, and interior spaces. Women returned to gardens and water basins, adjusting plants and refreshing soil, while children ventured back into streets and open areas, curiosity renewed. Play was still cautious but lively, their small hands leaving fleeting patterns in dust that the soft afternoon wind would erase. Courtyards became spaces of gentle activity, filled with quiet preparation for the evening ahead. Every gesture, from pouring water to adjusting a clay vessel, reflected the careful, enduring rhythm of daily life. Artisans resumed labor with renewed energy. The blacksmith tended his forge, the red glow of metal reflecting in walls and courtyards as he shaped tools needed for homes and daily tasks. The potter worked deftly at his wheel, clay spinning smoothly under hands skilled through years of repetition. Carpenters measured and cut wood in shaded areas, their sawdust drifting lightly in the afternoon breeze. Each act, seemingly ordinary, formed part of the quiet orchestration that maintained the city's hidden life. The marketplace stirred gently. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and clay vessels glimmered in the softer sunlight, arranged neatly as vendors returned. Transactions were slow and deliberate, a small portion of grain exchanged for a jar, a bundle of herbs passed with care. These gestures reinforced the bonds of trust and mutual support, forming the invisible network sustaining the city. Even in routine commerce, the rhythm was deliberate, unhurried, and harmonious. Animals responded to the shift in temperature. Goats moved calmly, grazing or adjusting positions for comfort. Cats prowled walls and rooftops, alert yet unhurried, their soft movements blending with the gentle murmur of the city. Birds, fewer in number than during the morning, flitted between low towers and trees, their quiet calls punctuating the afternoon stillness. Even the wind, lighter now, brushed alleys and rooftops with soft murmurs, carrying dust and scents through the city in gentle waves. By late afternoon, the city had fully reawakened from its brief midday lull. Courtyards, streets, and rooftops were alive with movement, water drawn, clay molded, animals tended, and gardens refreshed. Every ordinary action, repeated across generations, reinforced the invisible harmony that defined this hidden desert city. In the soft light of afternoon, life unfolded with quiet beauty, deliberate, patient, and enduring, a testament to the rhythm of human existence in harmony with the desert's enduring presence. The sun leaned closer to the horizon, casting a warm, amber glow across the city. Shadows stretched long across streets, alleys, and courtyards, creating pockets of cool relief from the lingering heat. The air was infused with the faint aroma of earth, clay, and herbs, carried gently on the soft desert breeze. The city shifted naturally into its evening rhythm, movement slower, deliberate, yet purposeful, as residents prepared for the approaching night. Women moved gracefully through courtyards and shaded areas, tending gardens, adjusting water basins, and arranging plants to shield them from the last intense rays of sunlight. Children played quietly, often under the protective shade of walls or low arches, their curiosity tempered by the dimming light. Courtyards became centers of gentle activity, where everyday tasks blended seamlessly with preparation for the evening, and each gesture reflected the city's enduring rhythm. Artisans adjusted their work to the mellowing light. The blacksmith tended the final pieces of metal, the forge casting soft reflections that flickered across nearby walls. The potter shaped clay vessels with steady, practiced hands, finishing the day's work while the light allowed him to see the finest details. Carpenters made careful adjustments to doors, frames, and tools, ensuring that everything was ready for the following day. Every motion, though ordinary, contributed to the ongoing harmony that sustained the city. The marketplace, quieter now, reflected the subdued glow of the late afternoon. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and pottery caught the warm light, arranged neatly for evening use or early trade the next day. Exchanges were sparse, deliberate, a handful of grain shifted into a container, a clay jar passed between neighbors, herbs carefully counted and handed over. Each act reinforced the city's invisible network of interdependence, built over generations, sustained in calm, measured actions. Animals adapted to the lowering sun. Goats shifted positions in pens, heads lowered, seeking the last patches of shade. Cats prowled rooftops and walls, alert yet unhurried, their eyes catching the fading light. Birds settled into hidden perches, wings folded, silent except for the occasional soft call. The city itself seemed to respond to the sun's descent, its rhythm slowing, yet remaining attentive, deliberate, and alive. By late afternoon, the city exhaled collectively. Courtyards glimmered softly, alleys were calm, and rooftops reflected the amber glow of the approaching sunset. Residents completed final tasks, tending animals, refreshing water, and preparing homes for evening. In this hidden desert enclave, life persisted not through grandeur, but through patience, care, and ordinary actions repeated with precision across generations. As sunlight faded, the city transitioned seamlessly into the quiet beauty of evening, its rhythm steady, enduring, and timeless. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, soft shadows across streets, rooftops, and courtyards. The sky blazed with streaks of gold, rose, and violet, reflecting on sandstone walls and flickering in pools of water throughout the city. The desert beyond glowed faintly, mirroring the city's warm tones, while a gentle breeze carried the cooled scent of stone and the faint aroma of herbs. Life shifted to a deliberate, serene rhythm as the city entered its evening phase. Residents moved thoughtfully, attending to tasks that marked the transition from day to night. Women poured water into basins and adjusted coverings over plants to protect them from nighttime chill. Children wandered quietly in courtyards or along rooftops, their play slowed, more reflective, observing the subtle changes in light and shadow. Every gesture, from arranging pots to sweeping dust, reflected the ongoing, patient rhythm of city life. Artisans finished the day's work. The blacksmith struck the final blows on tools and implements, the warm glow of the forge catching in walls and nearby vessels. The potter shaped last vessels on the wheel, smoothing imperfections while the fading light allowed careful observation. Carpenters adjusted wooden frames, doors, and tools, their work meticulous, ensuring readiness for the next day. Each ordinary act contributed to the unseen harmony of the city, blending labor with quiet ritual. The marketplace, now bathed in warm twilight, remained orderly and still. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and pottery gleamed faintly in the residual light, exchanged gently among neighbors in deliberate, respectful gestures. A few herbs or grains passed from hand to hand, a clay vessel returned to a shelf, simple acts reinforcing trust, cooperation, and continuity. Even commerce followed the measured cadence of the city's evening. Animals adjusted to the shifting light. Goats rested in pens, settling into the warmth of fading sunlight. Cats prowled quietly along walls and rooftops, alert yet composed, moving carefully to avoid disturbing the calm. Birds returned to low perches, silent and observant, while the soft evening wind carried the faint rustle of leaves and the delicate whisper of distant sand. The city's pulse slowed, but remained alive, synchronized with the gentle transition from day to night. By early evening, lamps and small fires were lit, casting gentle, flickering light across courtyards and interiors. Shadows danced softly, creating intimate pockets of warmth and comfort. Residents moved carefully among these lights, tending minor tasks and settling in for the approaching night. In this hidden desert city, life persisted in quiet, deliberate patterns, each ordinary gesture forming a thread in the enduring tapestry of existence. Evening had arrived, and the city's rhythm, steady and unhurried, continued seamlessly into night. Darkness settled over the city, soft and deep, as the last streaks of sunlight faded into the horizon. The sky transformed into a deep indigo, scattered with countless stars, while the desert beyond the walls became a shadowed expanse, vast and silent. The city moved into the subtle cadence of night, a rhythm quieter but no less deliberate than during the day. Every street, alley, and courtyard seemed to exhale, the city collectively slowing, preparing for rest. Residents performed the final evening rituals with gentle care. Women checked water basins, poured water for plants and animals, and extinguished small fires used for warmth or light. Children, now fully still, were tucked into quiet corners or rooms, their soft breathing blending with the gentle sounds of the night. Each action was deliberate and unhurried, performed with the awareness that small gestures preserved the city's balance and comfort. Artisans had finished all labor for the day. The blacksmith's forge cooled completely, and the anvil lay silent. The potter's wheel was motionless, vessels hardened and ready for use. Carpenters had stored tools carefully, sweeping sawdust into corners and arranging materials for tomorrow. Even in rest, the city's life persisted invisibly, sustained by the routines and care established over generations. Animals adjusted naturally to the darkness. Goats huddled in pens, quiet and still, while cats prowled cautiously along rooftops and walls, their eyes reflecting faint lamplight. Birds rested in hidden perches, silent except for occasional soft calls. The soft evening wind moved through courtyards and alleyways, rustling leaves and whispering across stone surfaces, adding a gentle musical undertone to the city's nocturnal rhythm. Pools of water and clay vessels caught the glow of lamps placed throughout the city, casting small, flickering reflections that danced across walls and floors. Shadows deepened, but the light provided comfort and orientation, highlighting the careful order that defined each courtyard, home, and street. Life continued in quiet gestures, tending animals, checking water, adjusting coverings. Each movement, small yet purposeful, was part of a continuing cycle of care. By full night, the city was almost entirely still. Courtyards glimmered faintly under lamplight, alleys were silent, rooftops darkened. Yet the city was not dormant, it breathed subtly, maintained by the attentive actions of its residents and the quiet, enduring rhythm of ordinary life. In this hidden desert settlement, night revealed the secret of its resilience. Life persisted not through spectacle, but through patience, care, and the deliberate orchestration of ordinary acts, continued across generations. The city rested, alive in its quiet, persistent harmony. Deep night enveloped the city completely, the sky a vast indigo sprinkled with countless stars. The desert stretched beyond the walls, quiet and undisturbed, while a gentle wind carried the cooled scent of sand, stone, and distant herbs. Within the city, shadows deepened in alleys, courtyards, and narrow streets, and the faint glow of lamps cast soft, flickering pools of light that barely disturbed the darkness. Life moved slowly now, measured and deliberate, as the city approached the deepest hours before dawn. Few residents were awake. Those who stirred did so quietly, performing small, careful tasks, adjusting water basins, straightening clay vessels, or checking fires meant to provide comfort through the night. Each motion was deliberate, performed with care and minimal disturbance. Children remained completely still, tucked safely in corners, while adults maintained the delicate balance of routine that preserved the city's calm. Even in stillness, the city's rhythm persisted, almost imperceptible, yet present in every careful action. Artisans rested fully, their workshops silent and ordered. The blacksmith's anvil was cold, metal tools dark and ready for tomorrow. The potter's wheel held firm vessels, smooth and waiting. Carpenters had stored tools neatly, their scent faint in the cooled wood and sawdust. Even in the absence of activity, the influence of their labor lingered, a silent testament to the endurance of daily practice and the invisible pulse of the city. Animals slumbered or moved softly. Goats rested quietly in pens, shifting only slightly as the night wind touched them. Cats prowled rooftops and walls, eyes reflecting the faint lamplight, silent and cautious. Birds remained perched, still and watchful, while the occasional rustle of feathers or faint call reminded the city that even at this hour, life persisted. The gentle night wind whispered through alleys and courtyards, carrying with it the soft pulse of a living city resting but never completely still. Pools of water and carefully arranged clay vessels reflected starlight and the faint glow of lamps, creating a quiet mosaic of light and shadow. The city, though hidden and forgotten by the wider world, maintained its resilience through careful attention to detail, repetition of ordinary acts, and the subtle awareness of its inhabitants. Every gesture, pouring water, adjusting coverings, arranging objects, was part of the enduring harmony that defined the life of this desert settlement. In these deep hours before dawn, the city existed in almost complete silence, yet its life was tangible in every shadow, every flicker of light, and every careful, deliberate act. Hidden and enduring, it breathed patiently, a testament to generations of inhabitants who sustained it through the ordinary yet essential rhythm of daily life. Slowly, imperceptibly, the horizon began to lighten. A soft, pale glow crept across the desert sky, tinting the farthest dunes with shades of pink and gold. The city, still quiet from the depths of night, felt the subtle shift as the first hints of dawn reached rooftops, courtyards, and narrow streets. Shadows retreated slightly, blending gently with the warm, early light. The air carried the delicate fragrance of earth, stone, and herbs, touched now by the promise of a new day. Residents stirred cautiously. The earliest risers moved softly through the streets, carrying water to basins and gardens, adjusting coverings over plants, and tending animals. Each gesture was deliberate and quiet, designed to maintain the calm of the night while acknowledging the approach of day. Children remained still, sensing the subtle changes in light and temperature, their breathing soft and unhurried. Every movement, however small, contributed to the city's invisible rhythm, bridging night and day seamlessly. Artisans prepared to resume work. The blacksmith rekindled the forge, flames flickering gently, reflecting on nearby walls. Metal tools were tested and set ready for the tasks ahead. The potter's wheel began to turn once more, clay soft and responsive under experienced hands. Carpenters organized wood and sharpened tools, careful not to disturb the quiet streets. The city, though still largely asleep, hummed softly with anticipation, a measured pulse rising as dawn approached. Animals responded to the first light. Goats shifted in pens, stretching and grazing quietly, alert but unhurried. Cats prowled along walls and rooftops, eyes glinting in the faint glow, moving with careful grace. Birds began their gentle calls, breaking the deep silence of night with soft melodies that blended into the cool, early air. The desert beyond mirrored the awakening, sand shifting slightly in the soft morning wind, reflecting the pale sunlight with subtle warmth. Courtyards and pools of water caught the earliest light, glimmering faintly and casting delicate reflections on walls and clay vessels. The city seemed to inhale, its ordinary components, residents, animals, vessels, tools, coalescing into a quiet, harmonious tableau. Life persisted, deliberate and careful, unhurried yet steady. In these first moments of dawn, the city revealed its enduring beauty, a rhythm maintained across generations, a hidden settlement thriving through ordinary acts, patience, and attentive care. The day was beginning anew. Shadows softened, streets awaited movement, and the city's quiet pulse strengthened. Every gesture, from pouring water to tending animals or arranging clay vessels, was part of a continuous, unbroken rhythm. Hidden from the wider world, the city came alive slowly, a testament to resilience, harmony, and the enduring simplicity of ordinary life in the desert. The sun had risen higher, spilling bright, golden light over sandstone walls, courtyards, and narrow alleys. Shadows retreated fully into corners and shaded recesses, and the air began to carry the warmth of the desert morning. The city, fully awake, moved with the gentle rhythm of daily life, every action deliberate yet fluid, reflecting centuries of accumulated practice and care. Residents emerged into the streets and courtyards. Women tended gardens and water basins, checking leaves and soil, arranging plants to thrive under the morning sun. Children followed the adults quietly, curious but careful, their small hands tracing patterns in dust, or crouching to watch insects move along sunlit stones. Each movement was purposeful, reinforcing the rhythm of ordinary life that had sustained the city for generations. Artisans worked diligently. The blacksmith struck metal with precise, measured blows, the rhythmic sound echoing softly against nearby walls. The potter's wheel turned continuously, clay vessels taking form under experienced hands. Carpenters measured, cut, and assembled wood in shaded areas, sawdust rising faintly in the warm light. Every act, however ordinary, contributed to the city's enduring harmony, a quiet orchestration of effort, skill, and care. The marketplace thrived with calm energy. Baskets of dried fruits, grains, and pottery were arranged neatly, glimmering in the morning sun. Exchanges between neighbors and vendors were slow and deliberate, a handful of grain, a clay jar, a bundle of herbs, all shared with care and precision. These simple, intentional acts reinforced bonds of trust and cooperation, anchoring the city in quiet continuity. Animals responded to the sun's warmth. Goats grazed calmly in pens or courtyards, stretching leisurely under the light. Cats prowled walls and rooftops, moving with silent, calculated grace, their eyes reflecting the golden glow. Birds called softly from perches, filling the air with gentle melodies. Even the wind, warm but gentle, carried dust and scents through alleys and across rooftops, weaving together the city, its residents, and the desert beyond into a living tapestry of rhythm and harmony. By mid-morning, the city was fully alive in its quiet, measured way. Courtyards and streets shimmered under the sun, artisans shaped objects, neighbors exchanged goods, and animals moved in gentle patterns of life. Every gesture, from watering plants to tending animals or crafting vessels, reaffirmed the city's enduring rhythm. In this forgotten desert enclave, the ordinary and deliberate acts of daily life revealed a timeless beauty, persistence, care, and harmony sustained across generations, unfolding once more in the warm, golden light of the morning. By late morning, the sun climbed higher, its rays spilling over rooftops and walls, warming stone and sand with steady intensity. The city's energy shifted, activity increased, but movements were measured, careful, and deliberate, respecting the heat that would intensify as midday approached. Streets, courtyards, and workshops hummed softly with the rhythm of life, a quiet symphony of ordinary labor sustained by generations. Women moved efficiently through courtyards and gardens, adjusting coverings on plants, refreshing water basins, and preparing ingredients for meals. Children followed quietly, observing the flow of tasks, occasionally tracing patterns in dust or playing near shaded walls. Each gesture was deliberate, part of the city's ongoing harmony, blending utility with subtle care for both environment and community. Artisans worked steadily. The blacksmith's hammer rang at intervals, shaping metal implements while allowing for pauses to conserve energy and focus. The potter's wheel spun under practiced hands, clay vessels taking smooth, functional forms. Carpenters measured and cut wood in shaded areas, adjusting projects carefully, aware of both the sun's glare and the precise demands of their craft. Every action, though ordinary, reinforced the city's invisible rhythm, a choreography of endurance and skill. The marketplace reflected the steady pulse of morning. Baskets of grains, dried fruits, herbs, and pottery glimmered in sunlight, exchanged in slow, respectful gestures between neighbors and vendors. The pace was deliberate, no rush disturbed the harmony. These transactions, though small and unremarkable to an outsider, were integral threads in the fabric of city life, a testament to trust, cooperation, and quiet continuity. Animals adapted naturally to the strengthening sun. Goats moved slowly through pens, grazing or resting in shaded corners. Cats prowled rooftops and walls with cautious grace, attentive but conserving energy. Birds called intermittently, their soft melodies woven into the warm breeze that drifted through the city, carrying scents of earth, clay, and herbs. The city seemed to breathe as one entity, each resident, animal, and object aligned with the gentle rhythm of daily life under the sun. By midday, the city had reached a balanced state of activity, active yet measured, vibrant yet calm. Courtyards shimmered, streets hummed softly, and workshops reflected focused labor. Every ordinary gesture, watering plants, shaping clay, tending animals, adjusting tools, contributed to the invisible tapestry of continuity, care, and resilience. In this forgotten desert enclave, life persisted quietly but powerfully, a steady rhythm that had endured across countless days, now fully visible in the warm, golden light of the high sun. The sun began its gradual descent, softening its intensity as it moved toward the western horizon. The city, bathed in warm, amber light, adjusted naturally to the slowing rhythm of late afternoon. Shadows stretched across streets and courtyards, offering cooler spaces for movement. The air, though still warm, carried a gentler scent of baked stone, herbs, and lingering dust. Life in the city transitioned gracefully, the energy of midday yielding to the calm deliberation of approaching evening. Residents moved with measured care. Women tended gardens and water basins, adjusting coverings on plants and refreshing soil. Children, sensing the mellowing light, played quietly under shaded walls, tracing patterns in the dust or quietly observing the slow movements of adults. Each gesture reinforced the city's enduring rhythm, a rhythm that harmonized with the gentle pace of the desert sun. Artisans completed remaining tasks for the day. The blacksmith worked briefly at the forge, shaping tools in measured strikes before allowing embers to cool. The potter formed the last clay vessels for the day, smoothing surfaces with careful attention. Carpenters adjusted frames and doors, preparing tools and materials for the following morning. Every ordinary act was deliberate, contributing to the quiet orchestration that sustained the city. The marketplace grew subdued, quieting after the active morning and midday hours. Baskets of grain, herbs, dried fruits, and pottery were organized, often simply rearranged for the next day. Transactions slowed, exchanges deliberate, a small portion of grain for a clay vessel, a bundle of herbs handed over with care. Even in these simple acts, trust and continuity were preserved, reinforcing the invisible fabric of city life. Animals adapted naturally to the lengthening shadows. Goats rested or grazed calmly in pens, cats prowled walls and rooftops with careful steps, and birds settled quietly in hidden perches. The soft evening wind moved through streets and courtyards, rustling leaves and stirring dust, weaving a gentle, continuous rhythm through the city. As late afternoon passed, the city's energy became soft, deliberate, and steady. Courtyards glimmered under the warm light, streets hummed quietly with movement, and rooftops caught the last rays of sun. Every ordinary gesture, watering plants, tending animals, shaping clay, reinforced the invisible continuity of life. In this hidden desert settlement, the day's end approached gracefully, preparing the city for the quiet, enduring rhythm of evening. The sun had disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving the city bathed in the soft glow of twilight. The sky, painted in deep indigo and muted violet, reflected faintly in pools of water and on smooth clay vessels scattered through courtyards. The air had cooled, carrying the delicate scent of stone, earth, and herbs, and a gentle breeze whispered softly through streets and alleys. The city had shifted fully into its evening rhythm, a calm, deliberate pace that marked the transition from day to night. Residents completed their final evening tasks. Women checked water basins, tended small gardens, and adjusted coverings over plants, while children were guided to quiet corners or sheltered rooms. The gentle gestures of ordinary care, arranging pots, sweeping dust, and preparing homes for night, reinforced the city's delicate balance. Every motion, however small, contributed to the enduring rhythm that had been cultivated over generations. Artisans had laid down their tools. The blacksmith's forge glowed faintly one last time before cooling, while the potter's wheel and carved vessels remained still. Carpenters stored wood and tools neatly, ensuring readiness for the next day. Even in rest, the city's life persisted invisibly, sustained by the accumulated labor, patience, and care of its inhabitants. Animals settled into nocturnal stillness. Goats rested quietly in pens, cats prowled rooftops with silent grace, and birds remained perched in hidden corners. The soft wind moved lightly, rustling leaves and carrying faint scents across the city. Every element, the residents, animals, wind, and objects, participated in the gentle orchestration of evening life, maintaining harmony even in near-complete silence. Pools of water and clay vessels reflected the dim glow of lamps and fading twilight, creating subtle patterns of light and shadow across walls and floors. The city exhaled collectively, its ordinary gestures, pouring water, arranging objects, tending animals, preserving continuity and balance. In this forgotten desert settlement, the day had unfolded with quiet precision, the rhythm of life sustained through ordinary, attentive acts, revealing enduring beauty hidden from the wider world. As night settled fully, the city embraced a deep, steady calm. Its pulse was almost imperceptible, yet unmistakable in every shadow, every reflection, and every careful movement. Life persisted quietly, deliberately, harmoniously, a hidden city, ancient and enduring, carrying the rhythm of generations through the soft, persistent beauty of ordinary existence. Night had fully claimed the city. The sky stretched above as an endless canvas of deep indigo, studded with countless stars that reflected faintly in pools of water, on smooth clay vessels, and across the warm sandstone walls. The desert beyond lay vast and silent, mirroring the calm of the hidden settlement. The city, after a full day of careful labor, play, and quiet rituals, now rested in a steady, unhurried rhythm, alive yet tranquil, sustaining itself in the invisible threads of ordinary life. Residents were settled. Women and men had completed the day's chores, watering gardens, arranging vessels, preparing homes, and now rested in their rooms or quiet corners. Children slept soundly, their breathing gentle and even, blending seamlessly with the soft, nocturnal pulse of the city. Every movement of the day had contributed to this delicate balance, and now the city exhaled in collective repose. Artisans had set aside their tools. The blacksmith's forge was cold, the potter's will stationary, carpenter's wood and instruments neatly stored. Yet the presence of their work lingered in the cool night air, a testament to skill, care, and continuity. Even in silence, the city's essence remained, alive through the deliberate, repeated acts of its inhabitants, a rhythm cultivated across generations. Animals rested as well. Goats huddled in pens, cats curled on rooftops or prowled softly, eyes reflecting dim lamplight, and birds remained silent on hidden perches. The gentle night wind moved through alleys and courtyards, rustling leaves and carrying the faint aroma of herbs and desert sand. Every living element participated in the quiet orchestration of nocturnal life, maintaining harmony through subtle, almost imperceptible movements. The pools of water mirrored starlight and the warm glow of occasional lamps, creating small constellations throughout the city. Clay vessels, arranged carefully in courtyards and homes, reflected the night's light, their surfaces smooth and still. Shadows deepened, yet the city's balance was unbroken. Ordinary gestures, pouring water, tending plants, checking animals, had woven together to sustain life, creating a hidden tapestry of continuity, patience, and quiet beauty. In this forgotten desert enclave, life persisted not through grandeur or spectacle, but through attentive, deliberate care. Generations had followed the same rhythm, rising with the sun, laboring, resting, tending animals and plants, exchanging goods, and preserving the delicate harmony of the city. Night now enveloped everything, yet its pulse remained steady, deliberate, eternal. The city slept, fully alive in its quiet, enduring rhythm, a hidden testament to resilience, patience, and the beauty of ordinary existence, awaiting the next day to begin its measured, timeless cycle once again.